For 2.5 years, I was stuck. I'd nearly been in business for 3 years, making decent progress, but I couldn't break through to the next level. I kept hitting this invisible ceiling, and I was making the same mistake that I now see every single founder make when they're trying to scale their sales. And do you know what the crazy part is? I thought I was actually doing everything right. So in the last 5 months, I've been able to triple my business compared to the other 2.5 years. But before this breakthrough, I was making these 3 systematic mistakes that kept me trapped at the same level. I spent 2.5 years making the same mistakes before figuring out what was holding me back. And you know what? The first mistake actually makes your sales process harder the more you work at it. The second mistake actually tricks you into thinking that you're building a system when you're actually just holding yourself back. And the third, well, that's the one that personally kept me stuck the longest, and it's the hardest to admit. So the first mistake is chasing every single shiny object. Now for me, someone very experienced in sales, I thought you could just plug and play using the exact same strategies that I was doing in corporate life into my own sales journey. And what this led me to do is start doing the same things that I was doing. This is like cold outreach, so using mainly emails. Alongside that, jumping onto Facebook and Instagram ads. The issue I had is I had no brand or no authority, and doing this really caused me issues. The other thing is I started trying to use all automation tools, and I constantly just became an expert of everything and actually didn't become an expert of anything. And it really kept me really bogged down without getting any calls in the calendar, but it felt like I was working all day, which was the painful part. I then kept spending hours and hours just learning these new tools because I was jumping from this tool to this tool. I just constantly had to keep learning this stuff, and what this was doing, it was just wasting time. I was just becoming an admin person. I spent more time on setting up the systems as like a sales administrator rather than actually developing business and collecting cash. And this led me to have really no momentum. So I would go and do this, and then I would start doing that. And what ended up happening is I just kept going up and then down, and then up and then down, and up and then down. And it was a really inconsistent momentum feeling. And why this kind of happened was I kept seeing all these things online. I kept seeing this new automation tool, this new email strategy that would work, or this copy that would work. And unfortunately, it didn't work at all. I just kept jumping between these new people online and just keeping my box like this. And unfortunately, everything just wasn't growing. It just continually just kept pulling things into the box, but nothing was breaking through. And then what happens is you're not a master in anything. So you're just sitting there and knowing a little bit about each strategy. And unfortunately, you're getting consumed by all the other people that are actually experts at that. And once you don't know one thing like a glove, unfortunately, all the other things don't produce results in a very, very competitive market. And I think my big issue here is I'm a naturally curious person. I want to know exactly all the strategies out there that are working because I want to rapidly grow my business. And this is sometimes the death of me because I just get consumed in all the shiny objects and actually don't just stick to what works. And that's normally the most basic format of stuff rather than being too complex. And not only was I changing the systems, I was changing the offer to try to match it because unfortunately what I thought was it was the offer now rather than the actual outreach I was doing itself. So I kept changing what we were doing, pivoting from doing normal recruitment to just doing this type of role, to then doing sales, to then changing it to working just with tech and finance people. I think I went through about 10 changes in a period of 5 or 6 months, completely confusing everyone in the business. Now the problem here is that my competitors, I could see, were doing really well and they were growing and they were doing all these type of things out there that I was trying to do. And I was just trying to work out how they could be doing that. And unfortunately, this allowed me to just waste months and months and even years on trying to figure out what they were doing rather than working out what I needed to do in that moment to make it successful. Because there's two different things when there's an established business here and then you trying to start up a business. If you're trying to copy exactly what they're doing, there's some things that can work, but if you're trying to do the macro things, unfortunately you don't have the macro set up to actually allow yourself to achieve that. And this took me so long to learn, and unfortunately it cost me thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pounds because I didn't do this earlier. This mistake actually cost me years, okay? And if you think that sounds familiar, wait until you hear the second mistake, which actually makes you feel productive while keeping you stuck. So number 2 is trying to perfect everything before you even start. So I would spend absolutely weeks trying to prepare and plan how to do outreach. So I would spend weeks on trying to work out the best email outreach or the best LinkedIn message or the best automation tool. And what this actually stopped me from doing was just trying to do it manually or trying to do it at all really, to get any IP and data to actually see what is working and what I need to work on. And it was driven from just trying to get the perfect thing, trying to get the thing that's going to take me to A to Z, because I don't want to do something that's not perfect or do something that's great. I feel like it's a waste of time. And that's what I found a lot of other founders are in that mindset, especially me. You feel like if it's not the thing, you then can't do it. There's no point to it. I would find myself also then like researching, comparing this person to this person, or this message compared to this message, and reading this book instead of this book. Like, you know, the Alex Hormozi's versus all these other people. And all of a sudden I was just overwhelmed myself of just all these different things, trying to work out, well, that's not gonna work, so this is not gonna work. And I started comparing it internally rather than just sending the DMs. And again, this all just compounds and just thinking that you have to be perfect in business, because it does not exist. And the kicker to this was when I was planning, I was actually creating processes to these things that were not complex, but I was making it more complex. So not only was I wasting time here, I was then wasting time building systems in place for this thing, this problem that I thought was going to be the case, trying to get all these automations when all of these leads come into the funnel, automating workflows, automating notifications, automating the process. When in fact, my problem was I didn't actually have the leads coming in, but I was preparing for the leads to come in more than I was actually spending on getting the leads. And it's that catch. And that's why we said that it feels productive, but you're actually killing the sales process, because it feels productive. You feel like you're going in the right way. But unfortunately, you're not. You're just stuck doing the things that are avoiding what you don't want to do the most, and that's outreach, or that's messaging people. And the problem that you have there is that you're kind of convincing yourself that it's working, but unfortunately, you're just wasting time. And this is the issue here, is like your competitors are moving fast. You know, everyone's kind of outpacing you. And unfortunately, if you're sitting there trying to get the perfect system or everything perfect, then nothing gets done. And what you end up building is a system that's so complex that it's not repeatable and persistent and consistent, because it's always complex. Someone else trying to come into the mix, they can't do it, or you have to spend weeks training them, or months. And then you have a really high churn rate of salespeople. So, you know, you're kind of cutting your legs off before you even start. And that is just not how you want to get going. But unfortunately, I spent years in this mindset. And then I had a massive mindset shift. I realized that competitors out there had basic systems in place and they were doing much better than me. My so-called perfect system took so much time and so much resource and wasn't getting me anywhere. And all of these complex systems, when I actually launched it, they didn't actually work. It didn't actually serve me any purpose. Most of the time I didn't need to do it. I was actually ending up doing it manually, causing me to waste all that time. And all the market opportunity and data and IP and information I could have got while doing all of that, I could have just been out there doing it harder, but learning and actually working out what people and what I actually need to then go build, rather than just trying to build things without understanding what it is that I need to build. And the pivotal takeaways for me was every single system I've ever built or ever had to use started off simple, and then it can get a bit more complex, but it always simplifies it. It never should be hard to do something. If something feels too hard, it normally is, and you should stop it. And speed of implementation beats perfect systems. The slower you are, the slower you're gonna grow in your business. The best businesses and the best people out there just take action, try things, and run with it. They don't wait for the systems, but they spend enough time and get enough data on that thing to know if it's working or not, rather than just jumping between other things like we said in the first point. And real prospect feedback is the number one thing that you need to get. It doesn't matter if your offer is a bit dialed out or you're not sure on your ICP, that has to be worked on, okay? But again, you don't have to have it perfect at the get-go. You need to have the foundations, but if you get real data, real conversations with people, and you just try the hard way, the old-fashioned DMing or the old-fashioned calling, and get people that you can speak to, you're gonna get real feedback from who you actually talk to, rather than sitting there on a piece of paper, trying to get the perfect message that doesn't actually exist because you've never tried it. And that's what founders forget, is that whatever they're doing on their computer, whatever ChatGPT does to them, or whatever ChatGPT spits out, it doesn't actually get real world data, okay? And that means when you're in the world, unfortunately, all the work you did, it's non-existent until you actually get the information. Now, the third one is hard to admit, but it's trying to do everything yourself. This whole mindset of, I need to learn it myself before I delegate, really slowed me down. Like, this one hurts, because I think back to just thinking I needed to know how to do everything before I pass it across to someone else, because I'm the founder. If I don't know how to do something, then no one else can do that. That's just not the case. You need to get experts that are better than you out there to then help you get to where you need to be. And this was a massive mindset shift for me. It really propelled my business forward. Now, my background comes from doing, over $10 million of sales in other businesses and having a 7-figure business, or about to be a 7-figure business outside of this one. And I thought the arrogance really in me is, I've been able to do this here, surely I could do this in my own business, and not trying or seeking help. Because like we said at the start, what you do in a bigger corporate business, which is where I did those sales, and this is a different type of business as well, sometimes it doesn't work into this specific business that you're going into, and you need to refine the skills. Now you have the skills here, sometimes you just need to get that narrowed in, get the direction, and then you're able to unleash. And you'll be able to propel yourself forward once you have that knowledge. But having that mindset of just, I need to do it myself, stopped me from doing that. It made me go out and think I knew how to do emails. It thought I knew how to do LinkedIn, thought I knew how to do Facebook ads, and thought I knew how to build offers and do ICP work because I had knowledge in that. But unfortunately, I didn't have the knowledge to do it in this certain sector or this certain offer. And it caused me to wait, and kick down actually seeking help. And that stopped probably about a year of me actually pushing through to where I am now. So most of my time was going into just trying to learn these skills. So literally I'd be listening to dozens of books on cold outreach, or dozens of books on how to do emails, or YouTube's every single evening on how to send emails. And I was getting basic information, but there were so many things I was missing out that caused me to stay kind of, an average person in these industries. And the other thing was I was learning one little angle of, outreach, but I didn't have the knowledge of the nurturing side of it, or the email marketing or the copying side of this. And again, I was getting good at the first instinct, but missing on actually how to follow up with the prospect. So there was so many gaps in my information, but it made me feel like this expert. And what I inadvertently caused was I literally just caused myself to be the bottleneck. No one knew how to do these things that I was doing. I was just trying to do all of it. And personally, I don't even think I knew what I was doing. And unfortunately, I couldn't replicate this to anyone to come into because I was getting average results anyway. It felt like a waste of time to document everything. So all of a sudden, this massive bottleneck just became in the business. It was me. I could never build myself out. I had to do everything. And unfortunately, that made me do nothing again. And I think deep down, I think it was just my ego thinking I could just build this all myself. And also just the perfection and the control of it, thinking that I could control everything. And if I build it from the start, then it has to be good. And all I knew was what I was doing previously in other businesses and also in my sales career worked. So why would it not work here? And I had this kind of limiting belief that I'd be a better manager if I was able to create it myself rather than getting help or seeking information to then implement it. And this was just a vicious cycle for over a year of continuously trying to do something. And yeah, it worked a little bit. It got some results, but it was absolutely painful, and it took me so many hours to do everything that it almost wasn't worth it. And what brought this into perspective for me was when I realized that the amount of time I was putting into this, I just became the most expensive employee in my own business. I actually was spending the most amount of time and providing the least amount of results in some regard. And my actual core expertise is what people pay me for. I was not actually doing. And while I was trying to learn these skills, my competitors, or the competitors out there that actually had an actual skilled team, were flying past me. And once I realized that working harder is not working smarter, this allowed me to pivot and actually go out and find what would actually help me grow my business today. So that led me to actually invest in experts that were actually doing this and getting results. And this took all the guesswork out of everything. I literally got proven strategies and formulas on what they were doing that were getting the results that I wanted, and all I needed to do was implement that and get the same results. Now, this took away brain fog, stress, and avoiding tasks that are actually getting results. It focused me on what I knew was working. And just again, that perfectionist brain out there that you wanna do something that you know works, once you see it working, you're then just wanting to do more and more and more of it. It doesn't feel like a waste of time. And the results were rapid. And my do-it-yourself kind of model was getting 1% of what the results I was getting with the expert opinions. And it was rapid in the growth. And what really hit home for me was that delegation is not losing control. It's the lever to get you to where you want to get to. Now, the results speak for themselves. I literally tripled my business in 5 months. I focused on strategy and not tactics. I was actually able to pursue opportunities that were required requiring my attention rather than just being in the weeds of everything. All the systems were working smoothly because they're actually built by expertise that have done it previously and know what they're doing. And I actually gained all my time back to start running my business, and I actually had more time when my business tripled than I did when my business was trying to grow. And the keyword there was trying, because it just felt stuck. Now, this mistake killed my momentum for years. And if you're thinking this sounds familiar, well, stick around, because I'm going to be sharing the exact same system that I use to break me through these patterns. The same approach we use to help founders escape this trap. Now, these mistakes really compounded. Shiny object chasing made me just continue try to look for new things. Perfectionism caused me to try to do all these flashy things, make sure that every single word was the perfect thing before even outreaching to anyone. Me trying to do everything myself and not seek help because of my pride and ego and the thinking I knew everything stopped me from learning the key things that tripled my business in 5 months. I was probably the most prepared person out there, but I was not scaling at all. And unfortunately, I just felt busy, constantly felt like I was working, put in 60 hours a week, but my bank account did not reflect that. Now, what actually got me to where I needed to was a system that was repeatable, and it only took 5 hours of my week. Now, this system allows you to focus on things that you're an expert in, okay? It's something that is repeatable and straightforward. It wasn't complex, it wasn't perfect, it wasn't made by myself. It was information that I learned from paying other people, paying experts, and paying multiple different people that put me into the driver's seat. So I went from A and jumped straight to probably around Y. I'm not to the end point, but I'm able to get to almost the point where I need to be, and I can fill the gaps in with my unique perspective. Now, this repeatable system relies on me continuously feeding the data, constantly learning what actually works, putting more information in there so I get back the actual returns that I need. Now, this isn't a cheat method because you're just using what other people have done. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Things don't need to be complex or automated or super crazy. The actual most simple things in life get you the results. You don't have to try to get the perfect words. Just go out there and try to get the information in, and you're going to get the results. You don't need to go implement all these crazy automations to get the results. Simple fundamental things that worked 20 to 30 years ago still work today, but unfortunately there's so much noise out there that it stops you from doing it. And like I said, my systems were not perfect. I started off really basic and added on to it from there. And the hidden cost was the team as well. Like trying to do all these things at once and pivoting and trying to do 4 different things caused the team to not be experts as well, and actually impacted their results. And this is not character flaws in yourself. This is just systematic flaws that most founders find themselves in when they're trying to grow their business. And recognition is the first step, but actually changing and implementing is what will change your business. The solution is never to work harder. It's to be more systematically viable. And that breakthrough changed my whole approach. I had to 360 on all my limiting beliefs, all my perfectionism, and my belief that I needed to do it myself. I needed to remove all of them. And once I did, again, that's how my business tripled. I made these 3 mistakes for over 2.5 years before I realized what actually you needed to do to scale. The solution wasn't working harder or finding better tactics. It was implementing proven systems with the right approach. If you recognize yourself making any of these mistakes like I did, we help founders implement systematic sales approaches that generate results. You get proven frameworks and implementation support that stops the trial and error that I had for 2.5 years. This generates founders 5 to 10 sales calls every single week with only 5 hours of their time. There's a link in my description that you can book a call with my team to see how this can help your business scale and add 5 to 10 sales calls as well. The difference between founders who scale and stay stuck is not intelligence or work ethic. It's recognizing these mistakes and implementing systematic solutions instead of continuing on the same patterns that kept you stuck.